Thank you, Awan. Gives me great pleasure to bring on board Rajesh and NGS to take our conversation forward. NGS, Rajesh, so nice to meet you both in person. It's been 2 years we're meeting after COVID, so nice to meet you. Rajesh, you're looking different.
Because first of all, welcome here and good morning to you. And it's in keeping with the times, I suppose. Fresh start.
Rajesh, in the run-up to the numbers, there were naysayers, there were critics, there were disbelievers, and there were storytellers. All of them have compared the current IT model with what happened in 2008 and 2000. That a scare in the world is bad news for Indian IT. You silence your critics, but naysayers are still wondering that how is this time different from the previous instances?
Because I think the best way to think about it is it's not very different. Every time, so when I joined TCS in 2001, we came on the back of general belief that Y2K will come and go and then Indian IT will just roll over and die. And we have proven that what is most valuable is the client relationship. And while the environment and the specificities of what the client wants done changes, technology is an industrial staple. And as long as you are agile enough and you have invested to build your capabilities, you can keep on turning with what technology needs to do. And it's the same thing whether it was 2000, it's the same thing after the financial crisis, same thing after COVID. And in the current scenario also, what clients are seeking to achieve through technology, the nuance of it keeps on changing. But there is no taking away from the fact that technology at the core of both their growth transformation agendas as well as their optimization agendas. And as long as you have the full portfolio of services and you are investing ahead to be staying relevant to them, and you keep your nose on the ground and you stay close to your customers, I believe there is a lot of opportunity for us to continue to do well. TCS has been built on that philosophy, and going forward also, this will not be the last time. I'm sure every few years something or the other will keep coming, but each of that gives us an opportunity to transform ourselves and keep on changing and becoming even more relevant to our existing customers as well as a wider set of new customers.
So let me draw the trajectory here. Post-COVID, there was a sudden drop and then a huge comeback. Will next 2 years be all about normalization? The double-digit growth what the industry has reported, will it be tough to sustain?
I think what is likely to characterize the next 2 years is a return to execution focus, operational rigor, and getting the actual work done. So if you think about the whole sequence of this technology transformation, many of the technologies, especially the cloud technologies, have been with us for a few years, but their value was underappreciated by the C-suite. The CXOs, the CEOs, the boards, for them cloud was a technology gimmick. What the pandemic did was to bring that value of that resilience, to bring the value of reducing the technology debt very, very clearly to right up to the board level, because they saw that companies who were well on the technology stack were up and running 4 weeks, 8 weeks before their own companies were. So technology suddenly got a boost in terms, especially the newer technologies like cloud, got a boost into the C-suite. But now the excitement of that proposition has died down, because the first 20-30% of that work is where the excitement is most. But the real value in any of these agendas is in the later leg of the transformation, because value comes only when you execute the remaining 30 and then the next 30% right. That's when the value comes. The next 18 months or even further is going to be on that phase, and that is going to change the competitive dynamics, because it is going to increase focus on companies who can actually get the heavy lifting done, companies who have the engineering powers to be able to do the tougher jobs. Because the initial shift is always the easy one, the new one. Now comes actually taking the enterprise architecture and saying what does it take to move some of the old legacy stuff and transform it to the new stack and make it work. That's our sweet spot. So I do believe that our proposition is going to resonate even strongly, and that should position us well. Of course, we will not be immune from whatever happens in the wider economy, but that's beside our control. So we are staying focused on what we can, and there I'm quite confident about where TCS is positioned.
So NGS, Rajesh has beautifully given us the sketch. But you'll have to fill in the numbers with perhaps some numbers. So my question was about the double-digit growth, aspirational or achievable?
I think it's achievable because of the overall
That's a big statement.
demand
Achievable
environment.
coming from TCS on double-digit means that you don't see any chink in the armor.
The way to look at it is that if you look at our order book, right, we have been consistently around between 7 to 9 billion per quarter, right? The book-to-bill ratio of 1.2, which is, augurs well for us, number one, right? The qualified pipeline that we see, the commentaries that we see from our customers, well, I think everyone believes that this technology is important. They recognize that the cost of technology skill sets have gone up. They also have recognized that it's so important. Number one, right? Now you can't just be without technology in everything, whether it is resilience, whether it is optimization, or whether it is transformation. In each one of these facets, technology is the solution, right? In that context, that I don't see that why we should now say that 10% or double-digit growth is not achievable, right? Because that's not a statement that I would like to give, but I would like to focus our efforts to win more deals, execute them better, and deliver that numbers that you wanted me to fill in, right? I mean, that's, I think, is the crux of the work is, and that's where the fun is.
But Rajesh, what we are right now experiencing is a slowdown. Indications are that US economy could see a recession. Typically, when growth slows down and when slowdown becomes a recession, it's a big change in the narrative for the world. Are you factoring that in your model, possibility of a recession, an impact on TCS?
Because we are, as I said, not immune to what happens in the larger economy. The way to look at us is that we have invested ahead of the curve. We have invested in creating the talent pool required. And most importantly, we have invested at the bottom of the pyramid. Significantly increased fresher onboarding. We have significantly been investing in training and reskilling. And now we are moderating the inflow while continuing to invest on freshers. So in this half year, we have already brought on board more than 35,000 freshers, which is actually more than our net addition. So we are continuing to invest on that pool set and moderating a bit on the top of the pyramid as we position ourselves to be able to move fast in either way. Remember that the bottom of the pyramid is a long cycle supply chain. Yeah. We need to, from the time the offer is made early on. Most importantly, till they become productive also, it's a fairly long cycle supply chain. Whereas the top of the pyramid is a short cycle supply chain. So we are, pulling back on the short cycle supply chain because that we can flex up and down when required, while continuing to invest on the long cycle so that we are well positioned. So we are kind of, positioned well to move in either direction, and they're not taking a forward call on where it's going to be, staying focused on where the today's opportunity is. And I believe that our financial strength allows us that flexibility, that even if we miss the call by a few quarters, it's fine. We'll need to recoup and do it, but that's not going to throw us off from where we are. So I'm very comfortable with where we are, both operationally and financially, and it is well positioned to deal with all the possible scenarios.
So when Rajesh is speaking about comfort, NGS, it's on growth, it is on margin, and it is on supply. When I say supply, talent availability. All three boxes right now, you're in a comfortable zone.
I think so. I think I should say yes, right?
So keeps me thinking. You should say yes.
I should say yes. And we have invested. We had 100,000 freshers last year. In the first half of this year, 35,000 people have been onboarded. I think they're all coming into stream. They've all gone through the TCS way of working. They've all gone through the training that we wanted them to go through on the new technologies and so on, so on. So I think we have the utilization bandwidth that is required to achieve what we have to achieve in the next 2 quarters, both in the short term as well as in the long term, making the right investments, looking at moving all our platforms completely into the SaaS model, as opposed to mixture of whoever wants on-prem will give on-prem, whoever wants SaaS will give SaaS. And I think we are moving completely towards the SaaS-based models. So all these are, very good strategic investments that we have made, which should augur well for our growth across geographies, across verticals.
So, and just let me divide it into 3 buckets. Long term, cloud enablement, agility, relevance. Indian IT companies and a company like TCS is right up there. It will always remain relevant. What we debate is always growth and the percentage of growth.
Right.
Agility and acceptability will always be there. So that's the long term. Medium term, cloud migration, Rajesh has called for it for next couple of years, so that holds true. But short term is where the large part of the focus is. And I'm talking about next 2 quarters. So let me rephrase my question. Based on the conversations what we've had today and at the press conference yesterday, can I say that as of now there are no challenges, there are no cancellations, there are no growth concerns, and none of the clients are pulling back even for next 2 quarters?
I wouldn't say that far. I wouldn't go that far. But I think, everything looks good.
Okay.
And at the same time, in some markets, especially in Europe, for example, people are worried about the energy crisis.
Okay.
That's going to pan out in the next 3-4 months. There are pockets of doubts, right? So what we see with them is, they're going through a budgeting cycle, but the budgeting cycle is also will be impacted by what they're going to see in the next 2 months or 3 months, how whether factories are going to be shutting down, whether these whole inflation thing, how the cost of goods are going to go up, how much of it they'll be able to pass it on to the consumers, how much of it they may not be able to pass it on to the consumers. So many of these things will have a bearing, right? So that's something that we'll have to stay vigilant and be with the customers and help them in their optimization as well as the transformation story as we move along, right? I think that is the risk that we have to.
Rajesh, historically TCS has always been very open about calling the grey areas, whether it was Diligent a couple of years ago, what was happening in Japan, or what was happening in some of the BFSI businesses. Are there any sticky spots you would like to call today?
Other than this overall caution on Europe and UK, I don't think there is anything immediate. Of course, emerging markets will also require watching because they are dependent on global capital flows and can result, but that's not a very large part of our.
So the risk
business.
is macro. It is not company specific, or it is not technology specific or solution specific.
I don't think so. Yeah.
What could go wrong for the concern which you just flagged off? Assuming that there is a bit of a delay, there is decision making which get pushed up and down. So what happens to Europe? What happens to the business there? What happens to the quarter then?
So I think, if that happens, manufacturing will be the first one which will get impacted. So we may see some softness in that manufacturing vertical. But we see that travel, hospitality segments is actually, delivering well. Retail has grown 25% plus. And that's the thing that I can think of. I cannot, it's very difficult to say and articulate any of this. Even in financial services, they have a huge portfolio of offerings. If sometimes deposit origination and wealth could be the focus. On the other side, lending and origination related to lending, mortgages, that becomes this thing. So they have a positioning that they can participate in either side, right? So I don't see any other thing, and because of the supply chain issues or the semiconductor shortages, etc., some of the manufacturing, like for example auto, is affected. That has a consequent impact on PNC side of the insurance side of it. So we see pockets of problems, but then we all have a diversified business, and at this point in time, the major side is manufacturing. I don't think that, if energy crisis actually happens, then manufacturing could get affected, factories could get shut down, and consequently, that may have an impact on some of the projects we do in that sector.
But if I say, and I was asking Samir and Milan, that all is well, is that the headline for us from this quarterly assessment, that all is well at TCS?
Absolutely, I think all is well, but yeah, a little bit of haircuts, a little bit of belt tightening.
You got to
and,
say it together.
Stay very positive.
You got to say it together, all is well.
Yeah.
You got to both say it together for us. All is well. Come on, NGS.
No, I think all is well. All is
All
well.
is well.
All is well. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the headline follows. All is well, and I'm hoping that all remains well for next couple of quarters. And so nice to come back to TCS headquarters. 2 years I've been saying that this entire interaction was missing. Zoom is great, but this is better.
This is much better. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikunj.
Thank you,
for
Nikunj.
coming.
Appreciate it.